Okay, we are live, but we're going to let it breathe just for a moment here and bring on Facebook. And we're going to get this party started. Really excited. And we are good. Welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, I thought it was kind of interesting, amid all of the criticism and blowback and boobirds of the Broncos' decision to draft Bo Nix at number 12, many of which, right, this criticism, it's, oh, that was done. They should have traded back and, taken him in the second round. Traded back, get a second round pick and more. Then you take him in the second round. Raiders weren't going to take Bo Nix. Nobody else in the NFL cared about Bo Nix in the first round. Like, he was persona non grata. But we learned from NFL.com's Chad Reuter, courtesy of Cecil Lammey and Andrew Mason, Zach, that if the Raiders didn't take Bo Nix at 13, guess who was at 19? The LA Rams.
This is the point we made, Chad, for the weeks leading up to the draft, that if Shawn Pyton likes his guy, don't worry about if he's overdrafted or whether you should take him at 12 or whatever spot. Just get your guy, because someone was going to take a shot. If Michael Penix went 8, Bo Nix was not falling out of the first round. And if it wasn't the Rams, it might have could have been the Raiders. It could have been a team like the Seahawks. It could have been a team like the Giants, kind of moved up back into the first round. All these kind of quarterback needy teams lost out because the Broncos stood to their guns, and got their man.
It's just ridiculous. Some of the stuff I've read, and I get it, everybody has to kind of justify their jobs, especially if they are in the draft media business. Like, that's your job, is to give post-selection analysis. And, it's commonplace. You go through your grade / rank a team's draft class. I get it, but people are really missing the forest for the trees on the subject of Bo Nix. David, the Papa Bear. Hey, bro, wasn't so long ago. In fact, just a couple of days, we had you on the show. It was great. Stoked to see you tonight. Thank you for the super. Papa Bear saying good evening, Broncos country. Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. Nix for 6. Hashtag Bonos. Hashtag Buckham ×3. MHH for life, Bronx for life. Love it, dude. Love it. Bo for show. Bo for show. Thank you, David. We got another one here. We'll do some hellos and thank yous from the DTR jumping in early. Thank you, Big Dog, saying the national media missed the fact that we got the best QB in the draft. Hashtag Bo knows Nix for 6. Love it, dude. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of Zach. Not much by way of like news today. So I titled the stream around what basically the national media is missing on Bo Nix. And what do you think it is? Do you think, Zach, it really just comes down to all of the pre-draft hype about he doesn't have an NFL arm, right? Which, again, I've said many times now is one of the most over-exaggerated claims on an NFL prospect I've ever seen. But what do you think it is? Why can't the natties, the national media, get this burr out from under their saddle?
Well, there's the supposed arm strength concerns. There's the age concerns. And I put all this in quotes because it's not a concern for me or for you, Chad. It's a concern from them. And like anything else, I think they look to deconstruct a prospect, find a red flag, manufacture one if one's not there. Because what do they all need? They're all in the national media. They want clicks, engagement, interaction. They have to drum up headlines. And then from there, Chad, it becomes a cult mentality where the average, the casual fan, even the hardcore draft fan will latch onto that opinion because a blue check mark said it. But if you really study the tape again, if you look at the stats as the Broncos did, I laid it out on Monday's show. When you take away all the gimme throws as the Paytons did, Shawn and George, Bo Nix was either first or second in like 10 categories.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick, because I eventually got around to writing about that. But this is from Albert Breer. Quote, I think it was Monday Morning Quarterback.
Yeah.
Quote, to combat the fair criticism that Nix came from such a screen. Whoops, where'd it go? Sorry, 1 second. Got to come back to it. Okay. To combat the fair criticism that Nix came from such a screen, quick game heavy offense, the Broncos eliminated throws in their film study tagged as givens from the evaluation, as they did with all the quarterbacks. From there, Peyton and Peyton got expansive advanced stats that elevated Nix above his peers. Nix was first. He ranked first among his 2024 QB brethren in 2-minute drill, needing points, all right? End of half, 2-minute drives, critical fourth quarter and 2-minute drives, fourth quarter 2-minute, and importantly, writes Breer, negative play differential. Then he goes on to say, does Breer, Nix was second to Spencer Rattler in red zone passing, close quote. So, yeah, that's called production over, hype. Basically, the Broncos erred on the side of production, trusting what their eyes were telling them. Zach, one last thing on it, which also included he was much bigger and kind of physically imposing in person
Yes.
than they realized.
Yeah, I mean, he has a stocky lower half. I mean, he's built solidly. He has the height. He has the big hands. I think they're over 10 inches. And if you watch him just in the intangible department, Chad, we got Michaela. I want to give her shine, her flowers as she deserves. $9.99 super. Thank you so much, Michaela. Bo Nixing opponents. Hashtag Bo for life and MHH rocks. You rock, Michaela. Thank you so much. I want to make my point really quickly, and then we'll give Michaela more shine. If you watch, and I posted it on my Twitter account for anyone who wants to see the full 2-minute video, it's Bo Nix for over 2 minutes breaking down what it means to be a good processor at quarterback. His self-awareness, his intelligence, and his poise is off the charts for a rookie. Chad, he verbalizes better than some 10-year veterans, and it was his first NFL press conference. If you dig deep and study who he is as a person, as a football player, you could see why Shawn Pyton was so attracted, and you could see why he has a chance to be one of, if not even the best quarterback in this class. I'll say the hot take now.
Michaela, love you. Thank you so much for the super. I want to piggyback on that, on what both of you are saying here, and just mention something that his top weapon at Oregon, Troy Franklin, who of course followed him to Denver as a 4th-round pick, said about Bo Nix, the passer, quote, his passes, I'll say, quote, they are very catchable. He makes the receiver's job easier. That's my guy right there, close quote. And that's part of what a good quarterback is supposed to do is, we talk about that old phrase, Zach, it gets maybe overused by MHH, or perhaps it's been overused at times in our existence, but a true franchise quarterback is the tide that raises all ships. And that's part of what Troy's talking about, even as simple as he's accurate. It's not just accuracy, Zach, it's throwing them open. It's throwing them to a point where they have a chance to, after making the catch, making a play, little things like that. You throw in, Zach, the fact that he's the most experienced quarterback to ever come out of college, right? 61 career NCAA starts, which is that record. Yeah, he's a little bit older as a result of the additional COVID year that he got, but that translates to experience. It also translates relative to Bo Nix to that accuracy relative to his completion percentage, also record.
Yeah, I mean, it's not cliche to say they raise all ships. A quarterback does. It's just we've said it so often, Chad, hoping that we can stop saying it because the Broncos finally had that quarterback that was raising everyone, but they haven't. We thought it was Russell Wilson. We thought it was Drew Lock. We thought we were wrong. I think this time, though, we'll be right because it just feels different. It feels like the perfect fit at quarterback is now a Denver Bronco.
A few hellos here, too. I just want to give some shouts. David Yunkin in the house. We got KB82. We got Shot Creator, Kevin Gray early. Let me see here. Give some shouts to Facebook. See Miguel, what's going on? Big Dog. I see the Ronk. I see Jeremy Sean on YouTube. Great to see everybody tonight. And we also see here Jesse Galvan jumping in. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate the super chat. Says showing some love for the deacon and the priest. Well, we most certainly appreciate it, my friend. It means a lot to us. You know this. Mike Edel jumping in. Thank you, Mike. So good to see you, big dog. And still waiting to hear back from you. You going to come on the show or what? It's okay if you don't want to, but we'd like to have you on the show. He says Bo Nix, Zach, equals Bo Fix.
I love all the puns. I love all the nicknames. I'm partial to a big Knicks energy myself, but I don't really care People talk about the stats and predicting what he's going to do. I think he's going to be the quarterback that is the point guard that Shawn Pyton's looking for, Chad. He might not put up 40 touchdowns in a year, but he'll have the offense on schedule. They won't break down in the red zone. They won't stall on third down. You're going to see, we talk about a tide. You're going to see the tide turning with Bo under center.
Appreciate you again, Mike. David Yunkin with the super. Thank you, brother.
David.
He says, Bo is 24. Quarterbacks are playing until they're 35 to 40. So if he is the one, then we have our QB for 10 years. If he's the one, 10 years is the floor. Yeah, they can go longer. I mean, it just depends. Everybody's different. It's the advancement, Zach, in sports science and how that relates to treatment, training, nutrition, medical, surgical, all that stuff. It does kind of push the limits of how long players can go, but it is still slightly dependent just on the kind of genetic luck of the draw, right? Like some people can play farther into a career. They got blessed a little bit more for whatever than others. But generally speaking, 35, Zach, is kind of like where you start expecting to see, if you haven't already, pretty clear signs of decline, unless they're the freaks like the Tom Brady's and even Peyton Manning, right? Like he had the neck surgeries. So it's like, well, what are we seeing here in this, like maybe lack of some zip here, more of these wounded ducks in the air? Is that a result of father time, or is that the next stuff? But he ended up, when he won the Super Bowl 50, that is Peyton Manning, being at the time the oldest quarterback to ever win the Super Bowl, passing his boss, right? Wasn't it Elway that held the title for the preceding 20 some odd years?
It's always funny when we talk about players' ages in the NFL. Like 35 is ancient. I'm going to be 35 in August, and might as well get my AARP card considering how we talk about these guys. But the point with Bo Nix, Chad, is this, and I'm so tired of hearing about the 24-year-old thing. Let's say the Broncos drafted a 22-year-old quarterback, and he took 2 years to develop into a starter. Would you rather have that and when he's 24 be a starter, or draft a day one starter in Bo Nix who's already 24? If he can play, he can play. And I'm not concerned if he can give the Broncos 10 years of franchise quarterback play, that will have been worthy of a first-round pick. 10 years from now is 34 years old. He could have 5-7 years after that. So I'm not concerned about the age.
Lawrence says with the super chat, thank you, Lawrence. Good to see you, my friend. Bo would have been a hell of a salesman. Probably, to succeed at sales. My dad, shout out Mark Jensen, is one of the greatest salesmen I've ever seen. One of the greats, one of the OGs, one of the Hall of Famers. And part of that, honestly, Zach, is, you got to have, you got to have a little charisma. You got to have no fear when it comes to kind of putting yourself out there. You got to kind of be motivated, have some leadership juice to you, something magnetic, but also, and these are all things that Bo Nix, by the way, up to this point, everything I've said, he checks those boxes. You kind of got to be a little bit of a people person. Yeah. And, we've heard over the years, different horror stories of, players not attending certain quarterbacks' birthday parties, or, quarterbacks who might put up big numbers in college, but then that you find out through the coaching staff and the different agents of players that nobody liked him, that he was kind of a cold fish or whatever. That's not the case with Bo Nix. I think it was in that same Breer article, Zach, that Nix was described relative to how his teammates perceived him as a Pied Piper, meaning like wherever Nix was, that's where his teammates wanted to be.
The Broncos also had quarterbacks going to Halloween parties and getting chased out by vacuum cleaners. I don't think we have to worry about that with Bo Nix, Chad. So, again, I talked about it earlier. He verbalizes better than some 10-year veterans. He understands the game better than some players who've been playing it for years. And he's a rookie, hasn't taken one snap yet. There's so much to love about him. Obviously, still a wild card. He could bust. I don't think he will, but there's always the chance. I'm just increasingly hopeful, Chad, and I'm liking the pick more and more and more as the days have gone on.
Well, regardless of who the quarterback is, one of the deciding factors that is pretty ironclad in predicting whether a highly drafted quarterback is going to succeed is the environment, the coaching staff that he lands in. And again, if this was Vic Fangio, I'd still be excited. The Broncos drafted a quarterback in the first round, right? Like it's fifth guy and 50 years the Broncos have drafted quarterback-wise in the first round. It's exciting. If it was Vic Fangio, maybe I would have more misgivings about what the future might hold or some doubts, etc. But Bo Nix not only gets Shawn Pyton, an offensive-minded guy, but Shawn Pyton, a guy who has a track record with quarterbacks, a guy who, wherever he goes, even last year with Russ, elevates them, raises the ceiling on what you would expect them to do. And then scheme wise, I mean, Bo Nix is a fit for what Pyton likes to run. The one and only Big E Bronco. What's up, Big E? It's good to see you, big dog. Says, can Bo Nix the curse that the Broncos, not drafting a quarterback? While Zach, it is true that the Broncos have yet to actually draft a franchise quarterback. I mean, there are arguments to be made, technicalities, qualifiers on whether or not Jay Cutler was a franchise quarterback. Tim Tebow, people will make arguments saying, no, he wasn't at least it wasn't a bust. You might not be able to say he was a franchise guy, but he wasn't a bust. We got that wild 2011 season. But long story short, the Broncos really have not drafted a long-term franchise quarterback that remained in Denver and brought the team with him.
I mean, I'll take it a step further from what you said. I'd be happy if they had Pat Shurmur still and they drafted Bo Nix, because the problem with Fangio and Shurmur was developing a quarterback, a super raw rookie or a young quarterback like Drew Lock. You don't have that concern with Bo Nix. He's pretty much developed. He's as pro ready as you're going to get coming out of college. So the fact that they're delivering him to Shawn Pyton and a great offensive coaching staff adds more hope to the situation. And, about not drafting a quarterback, it wasn't that they shouldn't. It's that they were drafting the wrong guys, and the person drafting was the wrong guy to be drafting. In this case, it was John Elway. You give Shawn Pyton a chance, you give the right quarterback swing a chance, and you have something cooking, as they do with Bo Nix.
By the way, guys, if we're a little bit slower on Facebook, stars tonight, try to forgive us. We're rolling with the punches. Scott is not in the office tonight. He had some stuff going on with his boy. So we got one eye on it. Don't worry. But if we're a little slow getting to you, that's why. The Ronk, we love you, big dog. Thank you. Saying good evening, Chad and Zach on the Mile High Huddle podcast. You the man, Ronk. Also, invitation still stands. We'd love to have you on for a superstar segment. Think about it. And also, you know what? I just realized going through, we have a jersey to raffle for the month of March. This is my fault with all of the time being gone. And I went on vacation, then I came back. It's been kind of a topsy-turvy off season for me, just with stuff going on. So I missed this, but we hit the goal of the stars goal in the month of March, which means we do have a jersey raffle for the MHH Facebook super supporters coming soon. We'll do that on Sunday when we actually have Scott in the house. So Ronk, Phil, Colby, whoever might be in the house. I mean, even Miguel is here from Facebook right now. Be ready for that. Okay, so back in real fast here. Let me see. We've got Smouse in the house. Unique Prepping, who's doing great. Zachary, who has been with us for a long, long time, got inspired, started his own kind of YouTube odyssey. And according to Zachary, he's doing really well with his YouTube channel. So congrats to you, my friend. Really proud of you. Says Bo plus Tim plus Franklin plus Mims equals talent. Love this draft. Get Matocha QB2. Been following him for 4 years. Yeah, so that's the undrafted kid from School of Mines that the Broncos invited. He's not signed. He's invited, Zach, unless something has changed, right? He's invited to compete at rookie minicamp.
Yeah, he'll come in. It's in, I think, a week and a half or under 2 weeks rookie minicamp. So it's definitely coming up, and he'll be competing probably for the quarterback 3 or practice squad spot with Ben DiNucci. I do like Matocha. I think he has more upside than DiNucci. And to your point, Zachary, and you're right about all the firepower the Broncos have now, the running game is going to be so beneficial for Bo Nix. You mentioned the receivers there, but having Estime and having Javonte and having Jaleel and that picking up Watson as a UDFA, it's going to be a punishing dual threat backfield that's going to take the pressure off Bo Nix and help the Broncos sustain drives. That's why I don't think, Chad, people clown the Broncos roster, say they're so much worse off than last year. I say, except for safety, tell me how. Tell me how they've gotten worse. They've gotten exponentially better at the most important positions.
Well, I'll steel man that argument, and I'll just say that they make that the Broncos are worse than they were. And I'll say, okay, yeah, Justin Simmons, you can argue that the Broncos got worse at linebacker, only in the sense that, look, I like Cody Barton. I liked him coming out of Utah back in 2019. But from a production and / intangible leadership aspect, it is a big loss losing a guy like Josie Jewell. Is it a loss you can't overcome? Like, is it insurmountable? No. But the issues are mainly, Zach, when you talk about kind of whatever exodus there's been and the biggest kind of turnover in the roster, it's mainly on defense. Offensively, yeah, you lost the big experience that you had in Russell Wilson, 9-time Pro Bowler. He's won a Super Bowl, but it didn't avail you. That dude is washed. He is officially washed. And we resisted that tag on him, Zach. I officially got on that train of he's washed. I just don't see it following that Jets loss week 5 this past season. But still, offense, yeah, you lose Russ, but you bring in Bo Nix, and even you bring in Zack Wilson. Like, Zack Wilson probably, seriously, Zach, if Zack Wilson was your starting quarterback last year in some weird alternate football Bronco universe, do you think Shawn Pyton wins more or less than 8 games? Honestly,
I agree that Russell Wilson's washed, but Zack Wilson was like ranked 41st out of 42nd quarterbacks according to PFF last season. If there was one QB that was worse than Russell Wilson's lowest moments, it was definitely Zack Wilson. And you got to remember, Chad, a lot of the Broncos' victories came on those Hail Marys and moon balls that Russell Wilson threw. I don't know if that Zack Wilson has the aptitude for that.
I don't want to get too far out into the weeds on this because it is water under the bridge, but just think about this, because I agree that Zach will. I mean, nothing's changed from the moment they made the trade. Zach, you and I were like, what? Huh? Why? But I would wonder, I'm not saying this is what it would be, but I would wonder this. You think back to what was the big net positive that Russ brought to the team last year under Shawn Pyton, and it was that run he went on, including during that winning streak mainly, where when the chips were down, man, he just made great plays and made a way late in games. A lot of deep ball production with Cortland early in the season too with Mims, but mainly throughout with Cortland Sutton. But he was wildly inconsistent. Yeah. You heard Shawn Pyton when he was talking about Bo Nix after they made the pick Thursday night. So this was the first post-draft presser after the first round before day 2. And he's being asked about why Nix, why da-da-da-da. And he talks about how, I can find the quote if we need to, but I'll paraphrase for now, where he's talking about, you turn on the film and, he's this great decision maker and he's, making protections in his processor. And, he just, the ball comes out on time. And when you watch him, it's really calming. I found it to be very curious, Zach, that he used that word calming when to describe, watching Bo Nix operate an offense. It's calming. What are the implications of that?
You don't have to worry on a down by down basis that the quarterback is going to do something stupid, Chad. And it's not just interceptions. It's, missing an open receiver or drifting into pressure or taking a net negative, a loss on any given down. And that's what Russell Wilson was bringing to the table. Just, you can never rely on him for a full series, let alone a full quarter or a full game. Bo Nix is the antithesis of that, where you can trust him to put the ball where it should be put, to keep the offense on track and to run Peyton's offense like it was designed, not like Russell Wilson ran it backyard football style.
Exactly. It wasn't just, 8 interceptions. It wasn't the fact that, 10 fumbles. What was it lost on that, Zach? It was like 8 lost fumbles or something like that. 45 sacks. Shawn Pyton must have been just like eating his heart out, like in a negative way, like dying every night, just like popping Tums going, you want to talk, if watching Bo Nix, Zach, is calming for Shawn Pyton, then imagine what it was like for him. I guess we don't have to imagine. We saw him finally snap on the sideline. Phil, brother, we appreciate you. Thank you for the stars, my brother. And Phil, if you'd ever like to come on the show, we'd love to have you on. You are bona fide, worthy, super supporter, and it would be great if you'd ever want to be on the show. If it's something you want to consider, shoot us an email, milehighhuddle@gmail.com. We'll walk you through it. He says, we have a crowded
interior line, I'm assuming.
Yeah, like IDL, probably missing the D. That was a pet peeve of mine. Like sites like Pro Football Focus and a couple others, because of PFF, instead of just putting DL on positions, it's kind of like how edge became a thing, right?
Yeah,
As a position.
It's interior defender now.
They started putting IDL, and then a bunch of our guys here at MHH, when they're like writing about positions and you attach our players and you attach their position in abbreviated form, IDL. I can countenance IOL, but IDL, I'm like, it's just DL. If you don't know that your team runs a 4-3 or 3-4, then
you got bigger problems.
You're probably not reading this article, honestly, right? Yeah. Like, if you don't already know that, odds are you're not reading this article. But he goes on to say, does Phil, crowded room, Sanders, Lawrence, Roach, Blackson, Myers, Ellis, who, if anyone, is out, or do we keep them all? #Buckham, Broncos for life. Well, I'm not sure exactly what position he's talking about here.
Well, he's saying inside linebackers. Phil is right here, but
inside.
He's not,
okay, all right.
But they're not all inside linebackers.
So bring it back. All right, let's bring it back. So Sanders, it sounds like, Zach, they're thinking he's going to edge, but that's to be determined. Cody Barton. Who are your starters? It's going to be Alex Singleton and Cody Barton.
Yeah.
They brought back Justin Sternad
and Griffith
and Jonas Griffith, right? And then Sanders is kind of a floater. It sounds like he's moving to edge. And then, Roach, he's DL, interior defensive line. Blackson as well.
Yeah.
Myers as well. Ellis is the rookie third rounder. He's going to be an edge. So, I think if we're talking inside linebackers, they didn't really do anything in the draft that changed the dynamic there. They did, though, Zach, bring in an edge rusher in Ellis. So and there have been questions about that, right? Like, okay, you already had a litany of Batman not Batmans, but Robins. You need the Batman. You have a litany of these guys. You just added kind of another one. So who's the odd man out?
Well, when it comes to Sanders, I'm looking at both positional groups, and like whatever's the weakest, that's where I want Sanders to play. But I don't want him to be a floater. I don't want him to be a Zaven Collins or an Isaiah Simmons. I want him to play one position, and I feel the Broncos are ruining him like they ruined DeMarcus Walker back in the day. But I think an inside linebacker, it's Cody Barton and Singleton. If there's a dark horse there, Griffith, if he's healthy, I think could start. I don't put much stock into Sternad. And like we said, the rest of them, I mean, if you're talking interior line, Phil, Blackson should make it. Myers is going to start. Ellis obviously is an edge, and Roach is going to be a primary backup because he came over from New Orleans with Shawn Pyton.
Well said, Phil. Appreciate you, big dog. Okay, let's jump back in and see what the Super Chat superstars are talking about, like Taylor here. So good to see you, my friend. He says, hey, guys, been a while, but glad we got Nix, and I knew we would. But do you guys feel something different about him than, say, Lynch or Locke? I do. Yeah, for sure, dude. I mean, first of all,
everything.
The production, you can't even compare. Drew Lock did have a little bit more of, not a little bit more, a lot more sample size to kind of hang your hat on at Mizzou than, say, Paxton Lynch did, Zach, at Memphis. But, other than kind of the confidence aspect that a guy like Drew Lock shares with Bo Nix, they're very different players. Like Locke does have a significantly, when you talk about, catch phrases like arm talent or whatever, like Drew Lock is an arm talent guy. He would have been a freaking all-pro future Hall of Famer, though, if he had all the other things that Bo Nix had with that arm, but he lacked. In fact, it's like this, Zach. When push comes to shove, do you want the guy who's got just insane arm talent, the howitzer hanging off his shoulder, or the guy who maybe doesn't have that, but brings everything else to the table, checks every box on the intangible side of things, the character side of things, leadership, and honestly, better size. Like Bo Nix is better built for the NFL. Drew Lock barely had 9-inch hands, Bo Nix, I mean, that dude could literally put his hand on the back of my head and you'd see his fingers like over my eyes, dude. Like, you ever seen Shallow Hal with Jack Black?
Yeah.
And he meets what's his name? Anthony
Robbins.
Robbins in the elevator, and this is the big moment that turns him from shallow hal into whatever. And he shakes his hand. He's like, "Man, you got some big mitts there. It's like shaking a bunch of bananas." That is what I imagine it'd be like if you shook Bo Nix's hand. But some big differences there. What's your answer for Taylor?
I've got a tail. No, that was a good movie though, Chad. With Paxton Lynch, I'm not even entertaining this because he came into his Broncos career literally dabbing and playing Call of Duty and bragging about it. So they're not comparable prospects at all. Drew Lock a little more. He did have the college experience. He went 21-25, so at least he had starts there. But the accuracy was so raw with Drew. A lot of the qualities about playing quarterback were raw with Drew Lock. And that's basically, I can only, echo what you're saying here, Chad. You don't have any of those concerns with Bo Nix. His arm is good enough. Is it Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes? No, but it doesn't have to be. He can make all the throws. But most importantly, he doesn't turn the ball over. He's so good in the pocket, and his accuracy is pin freaking point. And that appeals to Shawn Pyton.
I sometimes lose sight of, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole of looking in the past, but I sometimes forget how much of a freak athlete Paxton Lynch was, honestly. Because, yeah, we kind of clown on the giraffe thing, like 6'7", him and Brock Osweiler both being just like super tall Elway draft picks. But Lynch was actually a phenomenal athlete. Similar to Locke here, he checked a lot of the boxes, but he was missing a lot of the other ones that were unchecked. And Bo Nix, I mean, he checks them all. So, GLP, we got Gary in the house. What's up, bro?
Thank you, Gary.
Saying, no need to refute the media. Bo will show them. Go Broncos. Gary, we love you, big dog. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for all the support you bring to MHH, my friend.
Thank you, Gary. And yeah, it's anyone like clowning the Broncos, Todd McShay calling it an arrogant pick. I know I've said this before, and I've been burned with Russell Wilson and Hackett and a couple others, including Drew Lock. This time is going to be different. I wish I could say let him hate. I'll have to come up with a variation, including Bo Nix, but let him hate, and it'll finally shake out on the wash this time, Gary. Thank you.
George Fox on Facebook. Great to see you, buddy. Thank you for the stars. He says, look, Bo is not the guy I wanted, but he's the one the coach wanted. So I'm 100% with him. And that's a good way to put it, my friend. Even if you were doubters, like maybe not exactly put this way that you just put it, George, but like I know Nick Kendall, for example, who had his doubts about Bo Nix. Right now he's erring on the side of, hey, this is the guy Shawn Pyton wanted. I'm going to trust that. Danny Powers on Facebook as well. Thank you, buddy. He says, can't wait for the schedule release this month, guys. Great show tonight. Thank you. Yes, we know who the opponents are. We just don't know the order yet, and we're going to find that out in this month of May, Zach.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. I really want to know, Chad, selfishly, when that Steelers-Broncos matchup is going to be. Russell Wilson coming back to Denver versus Bo Nix and Shawn Pyton. That should be must-see appointment television.
Okay, let me grab Sam Bam jumping in. What's up, brother? So good to see you, Sam. Saying, evening, Chad and Zach. Now that we're a week past the draft and got Nix, what do you think the purpose of the Zack Wilson trade was? And since they declined his fifth-year option, some kind of QB insurance, go Broncos, #Nixon. Well, yeah, the Broncos felt good about their chances of getting Bo Nix, but they couldn't be sure. And from what we could infer, listening to Shawn Pyton briefly discuss the Zack Wilson trade, this had been a conversation with the Jets that had been percolating throughout the offseason. And it just so happened, it came together on Monday before the draft. But Zach, that's really often the way it works with the NFL. Like they'll flirt. Could be free agent negotiations, could be new contract negotiations, trades. They don't move. The decision isn't made. The action isn't taken until and unless they're up against a deadline. And for the Jets, that deadline, I guess I can only infer had something to do with the draft, but I don't know. Either way, Zach, I think it really boiled down to we don't know what the future holds, and we definitely need more experience in our QB room than what we have currently in Jarrett Stidham and Ben DiNucci, who I think combined for a grand total of 5 NFL starts off the top of my head. So, we clown on Zack Wilson's bust status as a former Jet, Zach. But last thing here, and I'm serving it back. he does have some experience. And so even though it was a lackluster move, if that's the direction the Broncos had to go because they just they didn't get Bo Nix or any of the quarterbacks, whatever, I still would be, as lackluster as it is, erring on the side of expecting the best version of Zack Wilson we've ever seen as a pro because Shawn Pyton.
Absolutely. And yeah, I wrote the article up yesterday for the website about the Broncos declining his option, and they were never going to pick it up, Sam. So I wouldn't read too much into that. It would have paid $22.4 million for 2025, fully guaranteed. Ain't no one paying that for Zack Wilson. I don't care who he's playing for. But there's three reasons I think the Broncos made the trade when they did and for who they did. Number one, it was insurance in case the Broncos couldn't land a quarterback in the draft like Bo Nix. It gives them a little better of a situation than just having Jarrett Stidham. Number two is that they're looking for competition for Stidham and Ben DiNucci and made the best man win. Shawn Pyton talked about that in the post-draft presser, that all these guys are going to compete, and he referenced what Bill Parcells told him. And number three, we all know that Shawn is a little arrogant in this sense and very egotistical. He probably thinks that he can fix Zack Wilson because the Jets coaches, including Nathaniel Hackett, did such a bad job with him, and Shawn's the guy to get it done right. And you know what, Chad? For a backup, I don't want Zack Wilson starting for one snap, but as a backup, I do think he could thrive and have a career renaissance under Shawn Pyton.
Cody Dubb, what's up, brother? Good to see you. He says, I'm not worried about offense at all physically. I'm not worried about offense at all. Physically, Josie wasn't the greatest. His leadership and knowledge is what you're losing. Get a vet in there. Well, I mean, that's the thing is he going to blow anybody's doors down with his athletic testing or like his 40 time Josie Jewell? No. But physically, I don't cast aspersions on the dude. Like, he produced. That cat, what is it? Off the top of my head, it's something like 3 consecutive 100 tackle seasons, 3 consecutive after dealing with some consistent injury issues. So yeah, he's not going to be confused, Zach, in other words, with like Devin White, who is just a freak athlete. But Josie Jewell, people did sleep on what he brought to the table physically. But I do agree with you. Your overall point here, Cody, what you're losing is the intangible stuff, his leadership, his experience, his knowledge.
Well, then maybe it's time for PS2 to step up and be the leader. He's the best player on the team. Maybe it's time for Zach Allen to step up and be a leader. He's one of the highest paid players on the team, and certainly, I think, on the defense now. And when you were talking about Jewell, I was going to say the same thing that Cody was saying. From an on-field vantage point, I don't think going to Cody Barton will be that much of a downgrade. I've been begging the Broncos for years to get a difference maker in the middle, and they choose not to do so. If we're talking about leadership, maybe losing Simmons could have more of an impact, but Josie Jewell, they can overcome that.
So, my bad. 3 out of his last 4 years as a Bronco, Josie was a 300 tackle guy. But I'm going to remind myself here, Cody Barton, I want to say he's coming off back-to-back 100 tackle seasons, and he is. So his last year at Seattle, 136 combined tackles. Last year in Washington, 121.
It's the same player.
Very similar players, very similar. Not known as the same kind of leadership juice that Josie Jewell was known for, but similar players, especially size, production, a lot of that stuff. Taylor, who could be the bust in this year's QB class? Mine is Jaden Daniels. Who do you think's got the biggest bust potential, Zach?
I agree with Daniels. That's why I didn't want the Broncos to go after him, even though it came out that supposedly Shawn Pyton liked him. I'm going to go against the grain and say Drake May.
That's what I was going to say.
I like May a lot. I wanted the Broncos to, move up for him, but putting him in that situation in New England, a first-time defensive-minded coach, and who do they have around him? Literally no weapons. I mean, Bo Nix' situation is like the Chiefs or another superpower compared to Drake May. He's a quarterback that's raw for being a top 5 pick, and you have to develop him just right. If he went to San Francisco or KC or Green Bay or any other team like that, I'd feel really good about his NFL future. In New England, not so much.
Yeah, that's the thing is like, we'll see what Mayo can do here, but that was a team that had very little. I mean, the Patriots were mostly a doormat in the AFC until Belichick showed up. There was a very brief stint with Parcells in the early Bledsoe career where, they had some success, made it to that Super Bowl. What was it? Super Bowl 31. Patriots, Packers. But still, what I'm getting at here is I think he landed in one of the least fortuitous spots, team wise, situation wise. I agree, very talented player. All the tools are there. I just hope Drake May gets the kind of cultural support and boost that he needs to really capitalize on all those skills.
If not, he's going to be Mitch Trubisky part two. And that was
Yep.
the concern, same school and everything. But if he can hit, I mean, he's going to be a good quarterback. I question whether they can develop him out there in New England.
Nate Dizzle in the Hizzle. What's up, bro? He says, I don't think people realize what we have in Nix. Multiple analysts claim he's the most underrated quarterback in the draft, including Kurt Warner and even CJ Stroud. Yeah, that's the thing is, again, people, it's kind of like Zach, people have heard me talk about this from a character perspective and being kind of a leadership, management, this and that. When people make a mistake, there's one of two responses usually. One is to completely deny it, and then point the finger, or try and make it, in other words, gaslight you and deny it. And they think that you don't realize that that they're lying. They think they're fooling you or whatever. And so by pretending and saying, no, I did nothing wrong. No, look, it was this over there. They think they're maintaining their character and integrity in your eyes, when in reality, it's crushing them. And then there's the people who go, oh, yeah, my bad. Sorry about that. I will learn from it. Won't happen again. And those are the people who you end up trusting and who end up actually having the integrity that you can hang your hat on. What does this have to do with draft grades? What does this have to do with Bo Nix feedback? Well, I think a lot of people, it goes back to, hey, there's no way he's going pre-draft. There's no way he's a first-round pick. He's a second round. He's a day 2 guy. And then when a team has the hubris to disregard some dude sitting in an office, in New York City, draft analysis on, say, Bo Nix, well, they gotta instead of just coming out and saying, hey, look, I was wrong. At least, obviously, one team saw something in Bo Nix. He's a first-round pick. Do I love the pick? It doesn't mean you have to still say you love the pick, but at least go, hey, I was wrong. He's a first-round guy. Boom. But instead, what happens, Zach, is guys got to dig into their position. They got to justify the take. They got to try and make it seem like they knew what they were talking about. So they cast out and they say, nah, this was a bad pick. F grade for the Broncos. Just you wait. But then what happens, Zach? A year from now, 20 games from now, Bo Nix is cooking. Where are those guys? What are they saying? They're hiding and pretending and hoping and praying that you don't remember all the shade they threw on that dude. And when they do get called out, like say in a social media situation like Twitter, if they do take the chance, they're not gonna take the chance. They're gonna ignore it. They're not gonna stand up and say, yeah, I was wrong. My bad.
They'll either own it if they have some sort of integrity, or they'll double down and they'll look for any sort of flaw to justify and steelman their argument. We saw it so much with Russell Wilson last year, him playing at his best, and the Broncos on a 5 or 6 game winning streak. I forget already. Seems like ancient history, Chad. They were still coming out of the woodwork and saying, "Oh, Russell Wilson did this wrong, and he should have done this," and ba ba ba. That's how it's going to be. But when you were talking a few minutes ago about how people were groaning over the Broncos taking Nix at 12, and you even mentioned some people on MHH staff, when I did the War Room mock draft, Chad, for our network,
yep,
and I sat in there and I made the Broncos pick, and I said I want Bo Nix at 12. You all should have heard the groan, including from Mr. Producer Scott Kennedy, who was in attendance, about me taking Nix there. And I didn't give it a second thought. At that point, I wanted McCarthy. McCarthy was gone. I said, okay, the Broncos need a quarterback. Bo Nix is the best man for the job. And all I heard in the background was, boy, that's rough. That's tough. No, it's not. And that's why, and I don't care what they say. I don't care what these analysts say. I care what Shawn Pyton thinks. And Shawn Pyton thinks very highly of Bo Nix. It's good enough for me, Chad.
Yeah, exactly. And, another part of this is that the way he kind of finished things at Auburn, the way his Auburn career ended, it did kind of put a bad taste in the mouth for a lot of people who cover the NFL and college football. And whatever he did at Oregon, because there was the element of system quarterback, meaning that, the system that was being run in Oregon, even an average quarterback could produce on a prolific level. At the level Bo Nix did, no. But still, they attributed it. They were more inclined, Zach, put it this way, to dismiss what he was doing at Oregon because of the system quarterback stuff on top of what they already knew about him at Auburn. So you got a few different things that kind of feed into it. But Bo Nix, let not your hearts be troubled.
But that argument falls apart when, like Shawn and George Payton did, is you take away the layup throws that he had because of the system and where Bo Nix fell. If a quarterback can play, he can play. He can make all the throws. It comes out on film. Don't fall into the narrative. Don't fall into the cult mindset. Bo Nix is a very talented quarterback prospect.
Okay, guys, we are about out of time. I'm going to grab this one from Iron Sharpens Iron. And if there is, which is a really cool name, by the way. Oh, it's D-Dub. It's D-Dub. Bro, where you been, my dog? I was just talking about you the other day to the missus. It was like I don't know, a memory. You know how Facebook, you get the memories. It'll tell you this is what you shared on this day. And there was a post from one of the MHH meet and greets. And Dale's always there. And I'm like, oh, yo, look, there's Dale and his wife, Gretchen, here they are. And I was explaining to my wife who you were. And we had that actually, it was the one before where we sat next to you, Scott and I, for the game and all that. And I was just reminiscing with the missus and whatnot. So your ears must have been burning, my friend. He says, well, hello, gentlemen. You're both looking good and keeping it 100 as always. Been listening when I can. Life is busy. Grandkids. Ha. Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. Says, glad Russ is gone and Nix was my number one for us. Let's surprise some people. Yeah, dude. Agreed. So good to see you, Dale. Hope you've been well.
And then he followed back up like Dale usually does. Thank you so much, Dale. That is super incredible, man. It's so good to make your presence felt and see you around these parts. And we hope that life kind of lessens a little for you so you can join us more often. We've definitely missed you around here. He says, I also like Zack Wilson trade. Kurt Warner is my number one quarterback scout, and he'll be the first to tell you the Jets did him no favors. I mean, anyone can tell you that. The potential for the trade is sky high. The floor already known. Also, I'm with you guys on the draft. Loved it. Keep keeping on DB for life. We definitely will, Dale. Thank you so much again. It's incredible.
Yeah, I hope the grandkids are doing well and the missus and all your kids and the family out there. So good to see you, man. Thank you. A legendary mythical figure, which, by the way, Dale, we should catch up, dude, since we didn't get to see you last fall. Come do a superstar segment. It would be great to catch up with you, bro. Shoot me an email, Mile High Huddle, or DM me on Facebook. Let's organize an appearance if you're down and if you have the time, right? Which I totally get. But so good to see you, bro. Troy, we'll listen later. Thanks, guys, with the generous super chat. Thank you, Troy. You're another one. Invitation. If you'd like to come on the show, we'd love to have you on a superstar segment, Troy. Shoot us an email, milehighhuddle@gmail. Cody Dub saying, hope Nix looks amazing so that Nick Wright can shut up. Dude, I don't even pay attention to that, dude. What's Nick Wright been saying? Do you know, Zach? I mean, more of the same, I guess.
I don't pay attention to that hot take nonsense, the Nick Wrights, the Stephen A. Smiths, but Nick Wright is a Chiefs fan, so as long as Kansas City keeps winning, he's going to keep pulling that trump card.
Okie Engineer, what's up, bro? Thank you. It says Alec Mock will surprise and make the team stud. Yeah, I got to remind myself of the list of the college free agents here. But I'm not going to. Here we go. Alec, let's see, Mock. I'm going to see what Eric wrote about him real fast. Just a little blurb on the signing. Linebacker from Air Force. Okay, so Mock says Eric is a missile when coming downhill against the run and showed reliable tackling technique. But can he work outside the tackle box and in coverage? That'll be the test for him. So, yeah, interesting. The Broncos do need some juice inside linebacker for the future. So it'll be interesting. Ronk, love you, big dog. Love you all. Thank you, Ronk. Appreciate you, big dog. We got a few messages for you, and then we're dipping out.
Just want to say really quickly, what a weird undrafted class. And I don't mean that in a bad way necessarily, but they drafted or signed BJ West, who's the second lightest player in NFL history. He's 5'8", like 160 or 150, 140, something comical like that. They also signed Frank Crum, an offensive tackle who I believe is like 6'8". He's like a literal mountain. So it's going to be an interesting crop. And usually the Broncos have a couple UDFAs that make the team, Chad.
Yeah, Eric wrote on Crum. Crum got much of the spotlight at the combine, by running a good 40-yard dash at his size. He's a technical mess, but the athleticism, length, and size are there for Zach Strief to develop.
I think that is going to do it, though, for the MHH podcast. Another tremendous installment. If you haven't done so yet, please follow us on Twitter at the MHH pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and don't forget about Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch, you know where to find it. We're always rocking it, mhhmerch.com. Get you some. If you haven't yet, please drop us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. You can find us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, make sure you're leaving your Football Priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some of that merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Man, I'm so irritated at Facebook. You know, they giveth and they taketh away. You know, Facebook has been really good to MHH over the years. We've invested in Facebook over the years because of that. And then they just change things, an algorithmic tweak here, an algorithmic tweak there, totally changing the back end. Like you can't see when you're live, especially you can't see unless you're like in the stream, like open the app of Facebook, get in the stream and see, but like there's no back end way for us to monitor stars and comments. It's just, and that changed recently. That was like that's a week old thing and it's really irritating, but love you guys. A shout out and a mile high salute to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters helping us keep the lights on tonight and contributing to the conversation. And I want to start with Dale. You know, so good to see you, bro. Genuinely, we have missed you, man. So really fun to see you tonight. DTR, the Papa Bear, Jesse Galvin, the Duchess, of course, Mike Edel, David Youngkin, Lawrence Rivera, Big E Bronco, Smouse in the house, a.k.a. Unique Prepping, Taylor Christensen, Gary Palmer, George Fox, Phil McLaughlin, Sam Bam. Did I already get Cody Dubb? If not, Cody Dubb, Nate Dizzle, Danny Powers, Okie Engineer, and Troy Boer. Much love and respect, guys. Can't wait to see you on Sunday when we will do the Facebook-only jersey raffle for March because we did hit the goal of 200,000 stars. So can't wait.
Super excited about that. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you Sunday night. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.